I must be a shit marketer. Yes and no. You are a shit marketer.
You don't do rev shares in place of your retainer. You do a retainer plus a rev share because all you're doing is taking on risk.
You don't choose the niche. You let the niche choose you. You put the offer out there and you analyze, well, who is responding?
Case study stacking. All you do is you get a case study, use it in your marketing to get another case study. Use it in your marketing to get another case study, and over and over and over.
So you have a few tweets over here. 1.8K likes, almost 1 million views. 1.4K likes, 500,000 views. 558 likes, 359,000 views. So Marcos, if I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, I understand likes and cash because I listen to this podcast and I know, but I want to get some engagement. What are some tips you'd give to someone who's like, I really need some engagement?
So if you need engagement, you need to do what's tried and true. That's a bar. You need to do the tried and true frameworks and you need to add your own spin. And I made this tweet maybe a year ago. And it was that the only thing holding people back from using viral frameworks is ego. And if you're listening to this, pull up another tab and look up top 10 books on YouTube. You're going to see Patrick Bet-David's top 10 books. You're going to see Alex Hormozy's top 10 books. What time is it? 2 minutes. All right. You're going to see, top 10 books for Layla, top 10 books for Cody, top 10 books for Ali Abdal, top 10 books for this person and that person and this person. Why? Because every single 10 book list there is different because they personalized, and every title is almost the same because they used a viral framework. So my advice to kind of guarantee an uptick in engagement is to find viral proven frameworks. They're almost like the low-hanging fruit of content, especially if you're new. Find the viral frameworks and use your own personal opinion and experience to spice it up and use those in your content.
Oh, there you go. Well, one of the things that have helped me, it's not so much in the engagement, but the quality of the leads that I get is mentioning the things that I disagree with. Like actually adding something that makes people go, I haven't thought about this because that is not a common take. So I'll give you an example. When I started posting about selling without sales calls, I got maybe like 3,000 views in a video, 4,000 views in a video, which to these numbers that I just, showed you from this guy right here, it's not too much, but it got me really good leads. We sold a 70-person workshop, $100 per person on something I was going to do anyway. So one of those things that really help is, what do you see in your industry that you disagree with? Like for me, I don't do sales calls. I don't believe in giving everything away for free. I think that only attracts freebie seekers. I have a few examples, and every time I've pulled one of those off, it usually gets the right people listening. The other day, I got on a call. This guy has 1,000 followers, only talks about poker. He's like, I like to talk. Back when I was doing ghostwriting, I'm like, sure, whatever. I get on a call. The guy only talks about poker. Turns out he was the owner of a 9-figure Amazon brand of shoes and like vests. Like I would have never guessed. I probably bought from the guy at some point. But it's that's what I mean about like whale bait. It's like thinking about what are the people that I want to attract, thinking about that what is in their minds, but they haven't been able to put into words. And it's like, it's hard for me to explain how to do the thing, but once it's done, it really helps because there's a lot of unsaid bullshit in every industry. And if you are the guy that says it, you automatically become kind of this pioneer, somebody that kind of goes against the grain, and everybody will cheer for that level of like kind of underdog angle.
And you know what content pillar it is to find a trending thing in your industry and then give your hot take that you disagree with it. It's the trending pillar and it's the opinion pillar. Super Saiyan 2 right there.
Well, there you go. We talked about this as the pesto pillars. For anybody who doesn't know pesto, let's see if I got it. So pesto is personal. What's E?
Expertise.
S, you know what? You explain it. I don't really know.
Social proof, trending, and opinions. And the best level 1 of content is just familiarizing yourself with having a good amount of all 5. And then level 2 is when you know how to combine the pillars. So like a personalized thread about a trending topic with your opinion on it, right? Like you can really go really powerful if you use them. And then the last level 3, is when you're doing it, but unconsciously. It's not deliberate. It's like you just think in the pillars, you think in tweets.
And by the way, like this level of marketing is not something you evolve into. It's like something, it's like a state you tap into. It's like at some point you can do it, but it's not like you can do it on command. If you don't feel it, maybe right now we just went for a walk, we had some kava, or like kind of chilling. If right now I'm like, Marcos, like write a million impressions post. It's not like you're gonna command it, but it's like a state you tap into, you know? So like sometimes you feel like, I'm not doing that well, I must be a shit marketer. Yes and no. You are a shit marketer for those 30 minutes that you're trying to force the thing, but not forever.
It's pretty good.
Good stuff. We're gonna clip that shit. It's gonna be a clip.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going. Let's see what you got. So something we do might be helpful. We only take calls on Mondays. Now I'm doing Mondays and Wednesdays sometimes, but the act of batching these calls, it's a hack. Like it's kind of miserable that day because you're back to back to back, and you have to be on your A game. But there's two benefits to only having calls on Mondays. Number one, you don't have calls 6 days of the week, and number two, you lose weight because you don't have time to eat. So you just do the whole thing, especially if you're in a cut. Actually works because you're not thinking about food while you do that thing.
Yeah, especially, and for me too, it's like for me, I don't know about you, but when I'm on calls, I just can't be in a state of like creativity, and I can't really think innovative and creative when I have calls. So for me, it's like I'd rather sacrifice one day for 99% of my calls. That way, the other 6 days I can actually be creative, think of innovative ways to move the business forward, think of new ways to market, think of new caps lock frameworks, etc. Listen to the last podcast for that framework.
How many calls do you have on Mondays?
My bare minimum is 12, and that's if I don't have sales calls or impromptu calls. So my bare minimum scheduled calls is 12, and that's because I have 5 team calls or 5. I have like 5 team calls and like 8 client calls or something like that. It's something crazy.
It's not. Well, that's how you do.
And then I have jujitsu after.
Wait, right? Do you eat?
I eat. Yeah, I eat. I have like a 1 hour gap at like noon where I'll eat, and then I eat dinner.
Oh, well, that's one way. Like you said something to me about dinner. Last night at dinner, you said, yeah, we're trying to look for someone who like to hire or someone to partner up with. That, by the way, JK, is the opposite of you.
Wait, what?
you said that to me. It's like, we're looking for someone who's the opposite of
you.
Like, what do you mean, bro? The opposite of me. Or like somebody was like trying to scale, like I don't.
Yeah.
I got down the scale route. The way I tried to do it was kind of flawed. It was trying to get closer setters. Now I don't do sales calls. I don't have setters. It's all with a Google Doc. I just sell with text.
Yeah.
And I just love it that way. But I was not a fan of that. Like back then, it did make a lot of revenue, but we incurred like 40,000 plus in costs, and it was some heavy shit. And it took like, honestly, I was really afraid of switching because I thought that was the only way you could do it. And often that's where a lot of my anxiety comes from. It's I know, well, I've only done it this way. Like, bro, like when I cut the first time, I was terrified to bulk. I'm like, I'm gonna be fat. And I hate being fat, and I lost all this fat, and I hate it, and I don't want to change it. Same thing with this business model. I don't want to change it. But when it's like sometimes a coach had to give me permission to, JK, it's okay to change it. You can change your business model, and you'll be okay. And I switched to the whole less scale. And now I just want to hit 100K profit per month for myself. And, I'll take step 2 from there. But for now, I'm really not interested in scale. But Marco said, I am. He wants to get team members. So we actually run kind of very different businesses.
Yeah. And JK, one day when he comes to his senses and wants to go and scale to $2 million a month, he's going to be one of my clients. But
if I just post, yeah, actually, guys, I've had a ghostwriter all this time. It's Marcos.
Yeah. It would go so viral. Like the number 1 psyop on money Twitter.
And I change my mind all the time. Somebody was like, but JK, you used to think giving value for free was the way. Now you don't. And you used to be a ghostwriter. Now you're not. I'm like, yeah, I changed my mind every 30 minutes.
This is the Change My Mind podcast.
Yeah, the I don't know the podcast.
Yeah, but I don't know the podcast. Like,
yes.
you know, if anything, it's a sign of a. I think it's a sign of an intelligent man when you can. I sound like Andrew Tate. It's a sign of an intelligent person when you can change your mind on topics and just admit, like, I was wrong. I can do it a different way.
What was something you were wrong about?
Ooh, that's a good one. Something I was wrong about is that I can work with anybody. I thought when I started that I could work with anybody. And I slowly found out in the most painful way possible. Can't work with this person. Oh, can't work with that kind of person. Oh, can't work with that kind of person. Oh, and then I found out another thing I was wrong about was that, you know, every niche can be scaled. There's something called TAM, total addressable market. It's real.
You got to tell me a story about this, bro. Like either one of the little TAM or tell me something.
So I had a client,
yeah.
I'm not going to give away the niche, but I had a client who was in a niche where it was just like the total addressable market on Twitter, it's just not that big. And I swear we've did everything. We bought ads, we bought retweets, like all sorts of stuff. There's just like not enough of this market on Twitter specifically, just not growing, just not getting engagement. Nobody gave a fuck about that niche. And this is one. I've had another one that was a completely different niche where this was a completely different problem. The first problem was that guy was under 1,000 followers and we just could not grow him. I'm just like, we cannot get traction no matter what we do. We would go viral, boom. If we went viral, if we went like super mainstream tweets or threads, people would click his profile and not follow him because he was just in such a niche. And then if we went super niche, we just wouldn't find enough people to follow him. I swear, like all 800 people in his niche followed him. And I had another client who had like thousands, tens of thousands of followers where in my opinion, I just think he hit the ceiling. I think the entire market that was interested followed him already. We sent out 1,000 DMs in terms of like a DM campaign. Bad. Like there's just no interest.
How do you deal with that? Like you're doing a done for you service, doesn't work out. And you're like, shit.
I mean, I set expectations. I set really good expectations, especially for clients in niches like that. Like those niches they obviously weren't like bread and butter, like education, info products, like where I'm like, oh, I've done that like 20 times. I know I'll scale you. It wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So my expectations from the beginning are set much differently. It's like, we're going to try it. Like, I think we can get these results for you. This is what we're getting for other clients in different niches. But admittedly, I've never worked with your niche. And I set that expectation up very early and they know that they're investing and it's a risk just like any business. I don't set guarantees in the same way that I don't set commitments. So that person who came and worked with us for a month was not locked into, for example, $15,000, $20,000 for multiple months. They were only locked in up front for 1 month. And at the same time, I didn't guarantee them the results. So I think it's setting up those expectations. And then at the same time, at the end of the engagement, it's a little awkward. But when you're a CEO, you got to have these difficult conversations like, hey, man, we didn't get the results that we wanted. Admittedly, like I could keep trying. And like I've given a few free weeks to try and like turn it around. Like instead of 30 days, I'll go 37 days or 40 days. I've done that a couple times. I'm like, hey man, admittedly, like the results are just not what we'd like. I personally am not even sure that it's going to be possible to scale with our method with your niche. I'm open to trying another month if you'd like, but again, I'm just not 100% confident with your niche, and they've fully respected it. And they're like, wow, that's like really cool of you to be honest and transparent, et cetera. Because, in this industry, most people are pretty slimy.
Did you refund?
No refund.
Because you didn't propose it in the beginning.
I didn't propose it. And I've offered a refund. I've offered refunds in the past and they just said no. So this time I didn't even.
Good stuff. I have a thought on this. Like if I'm listening to this and I'm unsure about my niche, I may be like, well, do I change it? Do I not change it? What do I do? And I have kind of a maxim for this. You don't choose the niche. You let the niche choose you. So let's say you run a pizza shop. I'll run an email on this. Let's say you run a pizza shop and sales are not as good as they could be. So you take common niche advice that you hear on YouTube and you think, who is the target market for this? Maybe somebody who has money, who needs to eat pizza fast, and they have the requirement for that. Doctors, they have money. So now you rebrand for pizza for doctors and you put it on your slogan. But then the wealthy lawyer, the wealthy banker, the wealthy marketer are going to look at that and think, that's for doctors though. It's not for me. And then because you niche down, you lost on all of that potential. Whereas maybe you will encounter the same problem Marcos's client had, that the TAM is just too small. So I'm a bigger fan of thinking, okay, I'm making these pizzas. What is the most popular pizza? And then you make more of that. And then you let the niche come to you. You start with the offer first. You don't choose a niche. I'm going to go for wealthy veterinarians in Idaho, right? You let a niche choose you. You put the offer out there and you analyze, well, who is responding? I don't know if you started off like this, but you did, you did the ghostwriting and the monetization. Did you start with like experts, coaches, and consultants in mind? Or was it something more like you put the offer out and it turned out that experts and coaches and consultants were the ones that needed it the most?
Yeah. So when I started, I was just doing founders and CEOs and just like saying that. And I put it out cold DMs to just all founders and CEOs. I think actually the practical thing I was doing, I think you taught me this, was Phantom Buster. I scraped Alex Hormozy's followers, and then I keyword reverse search for CEO and founder, and then I cold DM'd every CEO and founder, and then I would grow their following. What had happened was I had a couple of failures I failed for a SaaS founder. It wasn't very good. Like, we got him some SaaS subscriber trials, but it was like what I quickly found out about SaaS, and I quickly knew, I started knowing that I needed monetization after this, is when I worked for a SaaS founder and he got like a bunch of trials and stuff. But then I did the math because I asked him, I was like, well, how many subscribers do you need to even make your money back with us, right? It's like he needed like 10 to 15 paying $97 a month SaaS subscribers to even make money with us, because we were only charging $1,000.
And coming from SaaS, that shit's tough.
Yeah, for those who know, it's like, especially with not a lot of followers.
Organic?
Yeah, organic. And it was a niche. It was a niche SaaS. It was actually like data as a service. And I quickly realized that, oh, we got 7 trials from this couple thread, like this few weeks. I was like, those trials, we'd be lucky if one converts to a paying subscriber. So I quickly realized, if I want to charge, and 1,000 was the bottom, if I want to go charge 3, 4, 5,000 a month, how am I going to get that much results for a SaaS founder? So I scrapped SaaS founders after that. And then eventually I worked for free. I did 3 free trials. I think I've told this story. One was like one was a Web3 agency. One was another like a e-com guy, and then something was someone else. And all of those were like, meh, like not that great, whatever. And I quickly realized, one was a design agency, and I quickly realized all of those niches were out the window. So then I had like another client, and then I got another client referred who was a coach. And I crushed it for them. Fucking knocked it out of the park. Insane results. Like, I have you can go back in 2022 and see the screenshots. Like, these people were like all caps in the Slack. Like, oh my God, like we did, 50K, 100K, 25x return on ad spend, 50x return on ad spend, insane numbers. And I was like, okay, so now all I thought to myself, verbatim, I thought to myself, how do I get more of these? How do I get more of these? And there's only 2 ways. One is I basically just search for people who have this exact business model, or 2, referrals. And that's what I did. So I just started reaching out to coaches, and yeah, we slowly acquired the coaches and getting referrals at the same time. And then from there, we crushed like 4 or 5 people. I actually signed someone on a rev share deal because they couldn't afford our service. At the time was $3,000 a month. He was like, I'm not doing $3,000 a month. I don't even have a sale yet. Let's do $1,000 a month and 15% rev share. I was like, fuck, it feels like a big step back. And I knew, I forget who told me, but I knew rev shares are only good if they're on top of your retainer and not in place of your retainer. So this is a piece of practical advice for early people: is you don't do rev shares in place of your retainer. You do a retainer plus a rev share, because all you're doing is taking on risk. So that was a risk, but I knew I was still pretty early in my business, like maybe like 6, 7 months in. I was like, you know what? I'll take a shot. It's my niche. Let's do it. You know, call it 4 months later, we were doing like 60K in sales for that client with, 15% rev shared. We ended up doing a negotiation where we now negotiated down to, it was like down to 5%, and my retainer went way up. And yeah, to this day, we have a rev share and a high retainer for that client. And he referred me another client who I got a rev share with that person. I did the same deal. I was like, he referred you. I'll give you the same deal as him. Let's put a contingency. So this is another practical tip you can do, is you can put a contingency in your contract. So I did a handshake contingency because I did not fucking write a contract with a contingency. So I did a handshake contingency. Basically, it was $1,000 a month plus 15% contingent on when we start making you a certain amount of money. I forget what the number was, maybe like 10,000. Whenever you make this certain amount of money, that contingency activates, and we will go up to like $3,000 or $4,000 or $3,000 a month, and then the percentage will go down to 10%. And I hit it, crushed it again, because again, this is the same niche. To this day, I've had this client for about a year.
Do I know him?
Yeah, you know him. We've talked about him earlier. Oh. All these clients, and this person referred me. This person has referred me another client, and again and again. And all I did is basically, it's called I don't know what to call it, like case study stacking. All you do is you get a case study, use it in your marketing to get another case study, use it in your marketing to get another case study, and over and over and over. And then it avalanches. And now you have a nailed down niche, because everyone in that niche knows that you've done it 4 or 5 times in a row, and it gets easier and easier and easier to close sales in that niche.
Case studies is a good point. I think you made a good point. I think case studies are useless if it doesn't have one thing, which is context. If you provide context to the case study, it hits. If it doesn't have context, doesn't hit. Example, if I post somebody making $10,000 a month, okay, like you just swipe it. It's like, it doesn't matter to you. But if I say this person has 500 followers and he is making $10,000 a month, because you have context, you put yourself in that position and you understand how that works. This is why case studying is another example of storytelling, because you give people context in what that situation was, and then people put themselves in that situation. So to me, it's like I could put 2 of the exact same case studies, but in one of them, oh, there you go, it's moving now. Well, Marcus, we're gonna need to get closer now.
We only got like 10 minutes left anyway.
We're fucking kids. Okay, so I'll say this was the niche and this was the how much money they made. Then it hits. But if I don't put it in the other one, people don't care. Like, giving context to stuff is good. That's one thing you mentioned. Second thing you mentioned about that I want to point out is you don't choose the niche chooses you. Because I started with agency owners and consultants, mostly helping people out like that. But I don't want to say that 100% of the people I help like crushed it, right? Doesn't happen like that. But I noticed that some people had a cap. Some people were doing well, but they wouldn't keep doing well. And I'm like, why are you not getting any more clients? They're like, because we're capped. I'm like, what do you mean you're capped? I can't take any more clients, because they were in agency and they didn't have the systems to support it. They were a done for you kind of deal. Whereas consultants could take way more people. The upside that I could provide to them was way higher. Therefore, it's not that I only take consultants, but it makes sense that when I write and when I market, I think about them, because the niche chose me. I didn't choose consultants. The niche chose me. And that's why I think when people ask me, what niche should I choose? To me, it's like kind of an irrelevant question, because it's not the one you're asking the question backwards.
Yeah.
It's you sending out the offer and then you let the niche choose you.
Yeah. Consultants have the highest lifetime value for you. Whereas an agency, once they get capped, they're good. They've kind of completed their life cycle with you. Whereas the life cycle with a consultant for you could be 3, 4, 5, 10 times longer.
Yeah. Well, there's that. And the third thing I want to point out is, this insights wouldn't have happened if we didn't move before trying to get clarity. Imagine we ask a coach or a consultant, man, like I have agency owners and consultants, what do I choose? Or Marcos is like, do I do rev share? Do I do not? It's like, we couldn't have arrived to the answer if we first didn't act. So when people 95% of the people that like come out to work with me, I ask them on their forum, what would you like? Like, what is something we can help you with? 95% is, I just need clarity. Like, that's the main thing. I just want clarity. But clarity is always step two. It's like riding a bike. If you want to stand on the bike, the first thing you have to do is you got to move it. Like, you got to be able to move the bike, because in motion, it's harder to stabilize than if you're standing still. So one of the main cures for anxiety, because you don't have any clarity, is just get going, and eventually you start figuring it out. And it sucks. That advice sucks, but if it were easy, everybody would do it. You know what I mean?
Banger.
There you go. Easy. So that's one of the things that when I'm feeling anxious, it's because I'm not moving. It's either because I'm doing things that I know I shouldn't, or I'm not doing things I know I should. And as soon as I align my actions with what I know I should be doing at that moment, clarity just appears. But if you try to get clarity on its own, it doesn't work, because clarity is always step two. It's like trying to stabilize a bike before you move it. You can't.